Okay, so good morning. Thank you for coming along to our presentation today. Stuart and I are just going to take you through a little bit of a journey to start with, and then we'll come to a point where hopefully we'll give some value in relation to the discussion. So within the IT landscape, what we are all seeing across all industry, and it plays into obviously the legal sector heavily, is that from a data perspective, and we've heard about it today, we have an exponential growth, excuse the pun, in relation to data growth that's sitting within the market. That said, though, that data is becoming more diverse in relation to its use case, in relation to performance, in relation to how long we need to keep it, in relation to the legislation that sits around that. And that data is also becoming much more fluid in relation to the type of data from different systems, different services, all of those different areas that then play into it, and all of the social connotations that come in and the video side of things that are playing into that. And challenging all of those elements together and looking at how they link, we also have the same challenges with that data in relation to the compliance that sits around that, looking at things like data sovereignty, the location of where that data is, and also the security that sits around that data.
Just to make that relevant for the legal industry, I think we've all seen the exponential growth, again, excuse the pun, but I do use that word a lot, in growth in data within the legal industry. When I started out, we were storing hundreds of thousands of documents. We're now storing tens of millions of emails. So that data is growing not just in size, but in complexity and actually the dynamics of each of the elements that's growing. We're also seeing digital dictation files now being stored. We're seeing voice files. We're seeing video files coming in, especially in litigation and discovery cases. There is that growth. There's the complexity elements coming into the legal environment, and also regulation. We're all well too aware of the audits that we get. The new Data Protection Act that's coming out from the EU in 2018, where you're going to have to disclose any security breach, you're going to have a data protection officer. All of the regulations are continually coming in. The growth of data's there, the complexity of data's there, the way people are using it on their smart devices, it's all adding to this problem. And also cost of IT, cost of everything is coming down or expected to come down. And I think that's through the consumerization of IT goods. People can pick up a smartphone that has gigabytes of storage, so why is our data center costing me so much money? So I think we're seeing all of these sorts of trends actually impacting the legal service industry as well, and as an internal provider of IT services, some of the challenges that I'm facing.
So with that in mind, the key then is to look at how we can leverage the ecosystem that's out there in relation to platforms and services to be able to broker more infrastructure, platform and software services across that. But in order to do that, what we really need to focus on is how we can have a service integration and management layer provided by IT to be able to provide access to different services, whether that be private cloud infrastructure services that sit in your own data center that you already have, or whether that's extending out into the public cloud to leverage public cloud services, getting that level of automation and orchestration through a single pane of glass to be able to deliver that, plus integrating other public services and application services. But bearing that in mind and looking at the growth of the data then, how can we leverage the internal storage systems that we have where we need to have data compliance, legislation that sits around that, encryption, all of those things, but also start to use more cloud storage services that extend outside of that, or move to more low-cost commodity services where we have object-based storage, where we can actually move stuff into long-term data retention within there, legal hold and compliance that sits around there, but being able to have that triangulated. Why necessarily does everything have to be backed up in a traditional manner or to a disk-based service when actually we can just have data sat across multiple zones within a cloud platform or a cloud service?
And obviously we're seeing this. I think there's been a debate for the last few years I've heard around legal about cloud and whether it's here or whether it's going to take off or float or whatever it's going to do. It's here. I think we now actually appreciate it. We've now accepted it. It's in your environments, whether you are managing it or not, or aware of it or not. I'm sure you've got Office 365. I'm sure you've got some of the cloud vendors who are here today, the Mimecasts, the Chrome Rivers of the world. So cloud is here, whether that's private cloud that you're consuming from vendors such as Exponential, and doing that yourself and trying to manage that yourself, or whether it's public cloud. I think virtually every large law firm or mid-tier law firm has experienced a hybrid cloud environment already today. And if you're not, I think you should be. And I think your users are probably consuming it even if you're not aware of it. But from the IT side is, how do we sort of manage that? What do we need to put in place? What do we need to start thinking about how we manage all of this information and all of this data that's growing out of control? Also, how do we manage that data, and how do we wrap information lifecycle management? I think for years we've, in the legal industry, not thought we're particularly good at classification and security classification. I think we're pretty good at it. We classify most of our data by client matter, and if you classify the matter, then you've security classified your data. And if you start using information lifecycle management techniques to manage the data in the relevant storage at the relevant place, and wrap into that security principles, you can start really classifying and managing your data. But what that also does is manages your budget, and it manages your cost. So an example of that is a patents application. Whilst we're processing a patents application, it needs to be really, really fast, it needs to be instantaneous, and it needs to be really, really secure. As soon as that patent goes public, it doesn't need to be secure anymore. But I'm sure that most people are still not wrapping hand in glove information lifecycle management and security policy management so that they can manage both their budget and actually where the data is. And you need to think about, how do you manage all of that? How do you put a cloud platform strategy in place so that you can see all of that data wherever it is across all of those different infrastructures?
And as was said, I think I've been working in the cloud market space since before it was called that, so since about 2007. And when we first were working in this space talking about IT services, there were three things that we always talked about as the most important things: security, flexibility, and commercial agility. And whilst those things, I think those things have become a given in the marketplace. Software as a service in about 2010 became mainstream. Infrastructure as a service has taken a bit longer, but in 2014 into 2015 it's become completely mainstream with a massive adoption globally, from banks to legal firms to media firms, etc. And we're starting to see a couple of other key trends that really are why people are trying to leverage cloud services, platform services across a hybrid model more and more across their business. The first one that we see very heavily is around the generation Y and Z side of things, which is where young people who are digital native aren't used to engaging and using services in a traditional way that perhaps I was when I first started working in IT. So from that perspective, their expectation, one, the internal expectation to attract talent to your organization is that you have those tools, those services available to that talent to come and work for you. And secondly, that the people that you're engaging with will actually be able to do that and be able to consume with you in a more digital friendly way. If I think of my daughter, she's 9 years old, I cannot imagine how she will work in some industries because she doesn't use technology in the way that I used to use it. She's completely digital native and uses it in everything that she does. Similarly, then, the next thing we see is people looking about how they can turn more data into deeper insights. So how can they leverage that extensive amount of information to get better insights and actually start to inform decisions within their business, which we'll talk about shortly. And the third thing that we see massively, and it affects all industries, is the competition. And the competition that's coming from those digital native organizations. And if you look at the three examples we give there, one that took away Blockbuster, one that's changing the way that we consume and leverage the way we book holidays and share our properties, and then a software company that's also talking now about buying 500,000 driverless cars from a software company. These applications are not built on traditional platforms. These are built on next generation cloud infrastructure platforms that have full dynamic scalability and agility that sit around them. You think of Breaking Bad, when the final episode came on, Netflix had a massive spike in the usage of their platforms that it needed to grow rapidly and then completely die off, and that was all natively done within the code of the application. So these technologies are completely changing the way that people are looking at the services that are available in the marketplace to drive that forward. And I think the key thing is these are all available. So whether you're doing it in your platforms within your services with a partner who's got those, or whether you're looking to leverage those from infrastructure platform, data lake, and data analytics as a service, these services are all there and available for you to be able to consume.
So as John was saying, the stuff on the left-hand side is what we've been talking about: infrastructure as a service, desktop as a service, platform as a service, secure, cost-effective. It's there today. Most people are consuming it today. We just need to be able to manage it a little bit better through cloud management platforms. The stuff on the right-hand side is where the future is. And my question is, who's going to be the Uber of legal? And if you don't think there will be one, I think you've got your head in the sand. Because there will be, and it might not be this year or next year, but there will be somebody who circumnavigates most of the law firms and goes straight to the clients and does it with the technology platform. And as John says, these things aren't built on what we know and love and learn today. These aren't built on SQL and file stores and document management and all of that. This is a completely new technology. I think we've learned as well in the legal industry over the last few years. I was at Evershed a long, long time ago when we outsourced a huge amount to Computer Centre, and we were seen as visionaries then. These days, everybody's outsourcing most of their RT functions, giving people who are professionals who do it for a living the capability to actually deliver those services back to us. So why would I be building servers? Why would I be still installing cables? Why would I be configuring things? So that's all done, and that's what we already know we should be doing. But these new technologies, so the platform service, infrastructure service, what we should be doing. These new technologies, why do we want to build them? So they're going to come, you're going to have to need them, you're going to need them in the future. But why would we build them ourselves? Why would I go and find some data scientists? Why would I go and find the data lake technology? Why would I go and find all of these tools and information to build out stuff that other people should be doing for us? So it's about finding partners who talk the whole game rather than part of the game, and talk about the future and a thought leadership for you as an organisation, like we're thought leaderships for some of our clients, and trying to drive that agenda forward.
And the key, as Stuart's saying then, is also as that data becomes more important, is all organisations are going to start to look at how they can leverage data more effectively. Historically, we always talked about what happened in the past and why did it happen, and this is the way that a lot of analytics tool sets were put into the market and people started to leverage them. But the next generation of organisations that are really focused on predictive and prescriptive analytics will be actually now starting to look at what will happen and why did it happen, and be able to make much better informed decisions that sit around that. And I've been lucky enough to work in projects across various different industries where this is key. In automotive, in retail, all of these guys are focused on doing this. And the legal sector is another one where there's a lot of discussion and talk around how that data can be leveraged more effectively to win more cases, to drive better revenue, all of those good things. And as you start to move forward from that, the key then is to have a set of services that allow you to exploit that. So, as Stuart mentioned before, building your own private cloud infrastructure, leveraging enterprise platform services from organizations, being able to leverage the public cloud. If you can put a cloud management strategy in place, you can actually start to broker those through one interface and be able to consume them. And that really allows you to harness data. But again, that's not overly interesting. You've got the data, it's flowing through the systems. What then gets more interesting is, well, what services sit on top of that for IT as an internal service provider to be able to deliver to the business? So platform as a service in the next iteration of platform as a service, that things like Airbnb and Netflix are built on, to be able to drive data lake architecture within there that allows you to do near-time and real-time analytics on your data. But again, that's now starting to be able to enable deeper query. Again, tools and services that allow you to do that. The value sits above that, which is driving richer insight. So looking at how you can leverage software tools, and there's some great vendors here who specialize on mining that information and leveraging that to provide better visualization of service, for example. But also, how do you start looking at things like natural language processing to be able to write much more deeper algorithms to be able to get much better data insight from your information, and actually turn those into a next generation set of digital applications that sit above that, that you can have on mobile, obviously on your phones and on your wearable devices. And the key really is to be able to drive a strategy that allows you with a provider to have those services on hand to deliver into your business and to drive value out of that.
So just a few takeaways. It's about us looking forward as well as doing the ops. So the ops is about information, it's about security, it's about the day-to-day infrastructure service, platform service, as I said, and find a partner that understands about it. It's also about looking into the future and looking at what is coming up. And we know it's going to come. The big data, the data analytics, you're going to start in artificial intelligence. We're going to be putting, obviously, our data with a vendor, which is why we've partnered with Exponential-e. We're on a journey where they're going to get all of our data, they're going to manage that, but they're having a conversation with us about the next generation, the big tier, the big data analytics, which is why we're finding them as a very useful partner. But a few takeaways. Cloud's here, it's here to stay. Yeah, it's in your organization already, I can guarantee it. Somebody's using Office 365 somewhere, or Google Apps or something. So it's there, it's happening, embrace it. Private cloud, we all should be on that journey if we're not already. Think about your data targets and think about how you blend information lifecycle management hand in glove with security management. Problem with security, I always say, when I'm at any event, I can spend my entire security budget on all of the products here, because there's thousands of them. But I haven't got that much money. I need to focus on what I really need to secure, data classification, wrapped in with information lifecycle management to understand when is that data secure, when should it be secure, when should it be publicly available, and you can manage your budgets better that way, and your usability, because, as was said earlier, the problem with security is people hate it. Obviously, keep your eye on data sovereignty, where your data is stored in these cloud platforms. But then moving forward, looking to leverage platforms that, and having a conversation with your providers, with your significant providers about what the future strategy holds, and how you get there, and how they can help you get there. And then all of this blended together, hopefully will help you deliver that, becoming a digital internal service provider to your customers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.